नमस्कार अवधेश।
Namaskar, my dear sisters and brothers who are hearing this talk on spirituality. It comprises every discipline of our life. Nothing remains untouched when we start talking about spirituality. Today we will discuss about life and death. These two are very important events of life, and I have found that these two events are always shrouded in mystery to everybody, and they always feel disturbed in their life, resolving the different aspects of their physical existence, mental existence, and spiritual existence. So here, one thing I want to make clear, that in order to resolve the mysteries of birth and death, one fundamental factor must remain in our mind. It must remain uppermost in our mind, that there are integral three aspects of our existence. They are inseparable when we are physically present on the planet. First is the crudest part of our existence is physical body, which consists of number of nerve cells, glands, their hormonal secretions, and great metabolism and the transformation which take place inside our body. So this is a crude aspect because it can be seen with the naked eyes. It can be operated upon also. The surgeons operate the body in case of any disease, if they want to remove something of, or if they want to graft something. So this is a crude aspect, and it is very important for us because in this crude physical body resides our mind, and mind and body must exist in cooperation to each other. They must remain parallel to each other's existence. Then alone there can be proper harmony, and they will be in a position to execute anything, perform anything. So this body is lifeless without mind and ultimately without soul. This mind, we come to know, we experience its existence when we are effortless. When we are in the heat of action, we are busy in one work or in other work, then in this busy schedule of our mind, we do not experience the existence of mind. We remain occupied, preoccupied with various objectivities, various worldly objects, and we do not experience that we have a mind which is propelling us to do one or other action. But the moment we are quiet and calm, we have withdrawn from the external activities, and whether in meditative mood or even while we are resting, but not involved in any action, physical action, then we find that there is a mind which is moving here and there, and taking several objects as its thinking. So this mind is very important factor in our existence, and one who has control over the functions of the mind, he can do anything under the sky, nothing is impossible for him. But even subtler to mind, mind is subtler than body, and subtler than mind is shown spirit or consciousness or witnessing entity. These are the various names of the soul. The popular name is soul, philosophical name is consciousness, and its functional name is witnessing entity. All the three make our existence. So if we were to understand any phenomena in life, we have to understand the functioning of these three integral chambers of our existence: body, physical body, mind, and soul or consciousness. So let us first know about our birth, and then we will go to death. Why to first talk about death? Nobody wants death, but still one has to die. That is a reality which we cannot escape. So this birth, physically, biologically, or we can say medically, we know that when the sperm and ova, they meet each other, when the ova is fertilized by the sperm, then the embryo is formed and it grows, and after about 9.5 months or 10 months time, it comes out of the mother's womb and the child is born. This is normally the biological process which takes place in the birth of a person. So here in this process, of course, the physical element is important, but this physical element, it grows not on its own, because this embryo at a certain stage of its growth is also inhabited by a mind. And this mind comes to the embryo from this vast cosmos. And the selection that which particular mind is to be introduced to a particular embryo is done by the mutative principle of the cosmic force, of the cosmic energy, of the cosmic consciousness. This mutative principle, Rajoguni Shakti, this is the controller of the entire cosmological order. Whatever is happening, it is under the influence of the mutative principle of Prakriti, supreme operative principle, supreme creative principle. So this supreme creative principle decides that this embryo needs this type of mind, which has such acquired sanskaras, such previous sanskaras. It has to undergo such sufferings. It has to enjoy such happiness. Like these factors which are always present in the disembodied mind are considered and then the mutative principle transfers that mental body which is roaming in this vast cosmos, and by the mutative principle it is inserted, it is put into that embryo, and then they start to grow together. The embryo is already there, and the mind is in a very, you can say, primitive stage. Slowly, when the body grows, different organs of the body grow, and gradually a complete human structure is formed, and it comes out of the mother's womb. So here, the importance of sanskara or the reactive momenta is an important factor in the birth of a person. We say the soul is born. Actually, soul is not an independent entity. It is reflected consciousness of the supreme entity. So it is a witnessing entity, and it always remains with the mind, so that whatever action is done by the mind is witnessed by it. And by any simple example, you can understand how the witnessing entity, consciousness or soul, has a role of witnessing every activity of the mind. That when, I say that I am eating a mango. So I am eating a mango. This phenomenon consists of three activities. One activity is that I understand, I feel that I am a person, I am a subject. Then I also feel that I am doing something, and that action is that of eating. I am eating at the moment. And then the third part is that I am eating something. What do I eat? So I am eating mango. So this sense of subjectivity, the object sense of subjectivity, that I exist, a pure I feeling, and thereafter a subjectivated or doer I, which feels that it is doing an action, and ultimately the result of the action that I am eating a mango. So these three comprise our mental chamber. When I say that I am eating a mango, I remain oblivious of a fact that in my existence there is also a perennial experience, whether I am aware of it or not. But there is a perennial existence of an experience, of a feeling, that I know that I am eating a mango. I know that I am eating a mango. So there is a knower of my action. This knower is so integrally, so inseparably associated with me that I can do nothing without its presence. But whatever I think, the feeling is there. I know that I am thinking this. And on physical plane, what I am doing, there also the feeling remains. I know that I am playing, I am eating, I am sleeping, I am taking bath, I'm working, I'm going to my office, I'm going to hospital. Every action, behind every action, there is witnessing entity in me. And without a witnessing entity, without the presence of this consciousness, no action is possible. You see, for any action, normally, you know, when there are litigations, then the court calls for the witnesses who testify there that this gentleman has committed this crime. So why the witness is required? Because it may be false allegation also. The person has not committed a crime and still he is being charged for that. So that's why a witness is called, or relevant documents are called by the court to substantiate the charge of the prosecution that a particular person has committed a crime. And if that charge is not established by the documents or the testimony of the witnesses, then that person is acquitted also. So an action is done that can only be confirmed if there is a witness to that action. If there is no witness, then it cannot be said that that action has been done. So the supreme witness is the cause of the creation of the cosmological order. He is the supreme witness. When the cosmos is created, so there is a witness there which is witnessing everything that is happening in this cosmos. The supreme entity, supreme consciousness, many names have been given, and people normally say God, or Ishwar, or Allah, Khuda, Paramatma, Bhagwan, many names according to one's choice is given to that supreme entity. But main point is that he is the supreme witness and everything is before his eyes. He is seeing everything individually and he is also seeing everything collectively. So similarly, in our individual body, we have a mind, and behind that mind is also its witnessing counterpart, which is Atman, consciousness or soul. So when a person is born, then this soul leaves the physical body, comes out of the mother's womb, but that body that in the form of the child, and every action that it does is reflected on this reflecting plate, that witnessing entity. So the life which starts after the birth is according to its previous sanskaras. And you know that this life and every action passes through various stages. And when we are born, so this birth is because of our previous stages. And the previous stage was that when we were in the cosmos, this vast cosmos, then we remain there. After that, a person remains there in the form of, you can disembodied embodied mind. Body is not there, bodiless mind. Bodiless mind, a person exists after death. And that bodiless mind is always associated with the consciousness, Atman. And when a congenial embryo is available, then the Prakriti, with the help of its mutative principle, transfers that disembodied body to that embryo. So the selection of the embryo depends upon the sanskaras, the reactive momenta, the past actions of the, you can say, mind, which has got no body now. But its past actions which are yet to be enjoyed by it, the fruits are yet to be experienced by it, remains present in the mind in a chamber called Karmashaya. And this Karmashaya is in the Ati Manas Kosh, supramental sphere of human mind, which has 5 koshas. And it is in Ati Manas Kosha, and this Ati Manas Kosha, Vijnanmay Kosha and Hiranyamay Kosha, these 3 koshas make the causal portion of our mind. And besides these koshas, there is also Manomay Kosha and Kammay Kosha. So this Manomay Kosha is not functional, and Kammay Kosha is also not functional. Only Karmashaya remains, which is the repository of all my past actions, whose results I have yet to experience, which I have yet to enjoy. And accordingly, our disembodied mind gets a body according to its sanskara, according to its reactive momenta. That's why we find that a very good parents, but their child is very notorious, very wicked, or very bad parents, but the child is very religious, very virtuous. It is because of the sanskaras that a person gets a particular physical body in a particular family at a particular place. So after birth, the life moves according to its sanskaras, which are already there, and gradually it starts also acquiring sanskaras in this life, and the environment, the parents, and the surroundings, these all help in the creation of the sanskaras. The main thing in the existence of our physical body is its parallelism with the mental body. Physical body and mental body both have their own vibrations, their own waves. When these waves are parallel, when these waves are in harmony with each other, then the existence remains active. It remains in action. And when there is loss of parallelism, which happens various, I can say, duration of our life, that the parallelism between physical wave and mental wave is lost. When it is lost, either a person goes in coma or the person has to leave this physical body. Existence presupposes that there is a harmony between physical wave and the mental wave. They have to harmoniously coexist. And we find there are cases when a person passes through period of stress, depression, various type of strains, mind is disturbed, And when mind is very much disturbed, then such a situation also comes in the life of a person that he commits suicides. The commission of suicide is because the mind could not adjust with certain circumstances. Either one had to pass through a great humiliation or great depression, great anger, great lust, anything which was so great in magnitude that the mind could not endure it. It could not tolerate the heavy weight of the external vibrations. So in that case, there is, you see, there is a, for an example, you can say somebody gets bad news like his father is dead. And this news was so shocking that his mind could not tolerate it. And there was simultaneous impact on the heart which stopped function, and the person died. So here the death is because of the lack of parallelism between physical wave and mental wave. This is, you can say, a physical death. Similarly, when the body and mind, till they are maintaining parallelism, till they are harmoniously coexisting, the life continues. But when, because of different circumstances, either the physical wave loses parallelism with the mental wave, or mental wave loses parallelism with the physical wave, then the death occurs. Both the conditions are possible. Physical wave, like somebody meets an accident. The body, is disfigured, the bones are scattered here, there. It is in such a state that human mind could not adjust with that state of physical existence, and there is an instant death of a person. Similarly, if the mind is so elevated, mind is so evolved that that physical body is unfit for its habitation, and thereafter also death occurs, and that body, that mind leaves the body. There is also another occasion when death can happen, that and that we can say that is the final death, or this is the death of the death, Mahamrityu, in which a person has elevated his mind due to spiritual sadhana to such a great extent that the physical body cannot accommodate that greatly evolved human mind. So when that human mind becomes one with the supreme entity, when it is unified with that supreme entity, its mental wavelength becomes so great, it becomes a straight line, we can say, having infinite wavelength of the mind. So in that state, it cannot adjust with the physical wave of the human body, and then it lives, and it permanent lives. There is no rebirth of that person. So these are the main stages through which a person passes through death. One is physical death, where the physical wave loses parallelism with the mental wave. Second condition is when the mental wave loses parallelism with the physical wave. And third is a very highly evolved mental wave. It will be totally spiritualized, and it is incapable of keeping its existence in that physical body, and it finally lifts its body for the eternal abode when there is no possibility of rebirth. So this way, our soul exists with the body in the body where the mind is also present, and also with the disembodied body, disembodied mind when it is in the vast cosmos. So this soul also finally merges in the supreme entity after the human mind is established parallelism with the supreme entity. So this is how in this cosmic order our life and death take place. And when during the physical life, our mind progresses with the help of three, you can say, forces which are active with our existence. One is physical class, another is psychic class, and third is longing for the great. These three forces are active in our progress, in our evolution, in our growth. And our final growth is when our longing for the great is achieved, our longing is fulfilled, and we establish communion with the great, we become one with him, and then our journey in this cycle of life and death comes to an end. We finally reach our goal. We finally become one with the supreme entity from where we had come. And so then there'll be no further life and death cycle in our existence. So when we live passing through this physical class, mental class, and spiritual class. And I think this should be clear to you that physical class helps us to grow, to become more intelligible. If somebody is walking and he comes across some stumbling block, falls down, then there is a evolution in the intellect that I have to walk carefully. I have to keep my eyes on the path so that no obstruction results into my falling down and injuring my body. Similarly, there is a mental class, like Newton, a great scientist. He was sitting and he saw that apple fell from the tree. This apple falling from the tree vibrated his mind. A great class ensued in his mind that why did apple fall from the tree? Why it did not go up? And it never goes up. It always falls down. So this psychic class resulted into discovery of a scientific truth, that is law of gravitation. He did not create that law, but he could know that this law was operating in this phenomena of falling of the apple. And similarly, the psychic class, like Siddhartha, he saw a ailing person, then he saw a old man, then he saw a dead man, and then he saw a renunciate. And this has such a tremendous clash in his mind that he thought to renounce the worldly life of a prince and get the experience of the ultimate truth, the final truth. These are the changeable things in the relative world. When he found that somebody is ailing, somebody, and that person a person also becomes old and dies also. And a saint, a renunciate, he is free from all the worries of the world and he is happy in himself. He is self-contented. He has no worries, no anxiety, no restlessness in the mind. So this inspired him to know the final reality and experience it, and he experienced it also. So this psychic class is very important in the evolution of our personality. And the third, which is exclusive prerogative of human mind, is longing for the great. Behind every action, there is always effort to achieve the infinite, to achieve perfection. Nobody is satisfied with the attainment. Always there is an effort to become better and better, to be more and more perfect. And so the effort continues and growth also continues accordingly till one is able to realize that great. When that longing for the great is quenched, when it is satisfied, when one achieves that status of greatness, then this journey's end comes to finality. Before that, one has to pass through all these three stages. So when the mind leaves the body after death, then there are people who believe that they are ghosts and they become ghosts and they fear ghosts also. But actually, when the mind is without physical body, that time it is, you can say, a sort of vibration. That existence is a vibrational existence. It has no physical medium to hurt anybody, to create any disturbance to anybody. For that, it is necessary that one has a physical body, physical existence. What it can do, it is this prayat yonis, or disembodied mind, has also various forms. But one important form which the people say that I came across a ghost and it did trouble me like this. So these are all the play of mind, the different kosas of mind which I have told you. These kosas, according to the environment, they give us various experiences which appear supernatural, but they are not supernatural, they are natural in that condition of mind. When we sleep, we dream also, and in the dream, we are on the bed in Delhi, but we see that we are in Kolkata and we are in Mumbai, or we are in Ahmedabad, or any such place, and there we are in a party, or we are in some discourse, some seminar. So this dream, we are somewhere, but in the dream, our mind goes to various places and sees various scenes. So this is also not real. It is an experience in our subconscious mind, in our subtle mind. Because of certain factors, these dreams take place in our mind. Similarly, the ghost experience or the people's experiences of the spirits, it is also the play of our subconscious mind, our subtle mind. It has no physical reality. And therefore, a person who has never heard about a ghost, who had never read anything about ghost, when he has to pass through a lonely place, a very fearful place, he may fear. If he is passing through a forest, he may fear some wild animals or serpents, tigers, but not ghosts. And I myself has been going to cremation ground for last 55, 56 years, and dead of night after 12 midnight, all alone for doing sadhana. I never met any ghost. I met Vidya Tantrics. I met criminals also. Sometimes I felt fear also. Now I do not feel, but in the early period of my this night sadhana, I used to feel. But I never met any ghost. So I can assure you that there is nothing like ghost. It is in our mind, and that's why it appears. It is a psychological phenomena. One must not fear the ghost. Somebody became ghost after the death. The vibrations are there, and these vibrations do affect them also and others also. But there is nothing like ghost which can trouble us, which can cause any injury to us. And I will also say that this human life we get, it is also part of evolution of a species. And till the human life, the existence moves according to the cosmic mind's momentum, cosmic mind's, I can say, will. It is its desire, divine desire, which helps this species to evolve. But when the evolution enters into the phase of human life, from animal life it comes to human life, then because of the independence of will which a human being has got, he is able to also make his own destiny. He can be a good man, he can be a bad man, he can be a religious man, he can be an unrighteous man. It all depends upon his own sanskaras, which he creates or which are imposed on him in the environment he lives. So the first human being is evolved from the animal life due to cosmic will. But after he gets human life or she gets human life, then the evolution as I mentioned earlier, is by physical class, mental class, and longing for the great. And the environment also plays a great role in our evolution of our personality. Now, when we have got in human life, then there is also possibility that we can again go back to animal life or plant's life or even inanimate like a stone or any solid factor. This is also possibility. The reason is that our mind has a certain wavelength, and this can adjust only with the wavelength of the physical body, which it itself has also got a wave. So this wavelength of the physical body and the wavelength of our mental body, when they are compatible to each other, then there is harmonious existence, it exists. But suppose a person is thinking about money, always thinking about money, and when he dies, that time also he is thinking about money. So naturally, since the thought in his mind was of the money, so this means his mental wave has become so crude that it takes the form of money in the next life. So that's why the mind which thinks the object which is dearest to it at the time of death, that becomes the criteria of the new, you can say, life of a particular person. If it is of goodness while a person is living his breath, then if he is thinking of service to others, he is thinking of some spiritual matters, he is thinking of making himself great by sadhana, then he will get a human life. But if he thinks of something else, then he can retrace back to other species according to the thinking at the time of death. If he is thinking of eating flesh, he is very fond of non-veg food, then he may take birth as a vulture, which is fond of flesh. So that's why one's thinking must be always pure and pious, so that the next life is also either of a more evolved human being or of a liberated soul. So it is not that these things are immaterial, useless. They have great impact on our next life. And so we should be very careful in selecting the object of our mind. So that's why I want to conclude here that this life is a fortunate life, which is spent in the elevation of mind. And when the mind is elevated, accordingly, our nerve cells, our ectoplasm, our protoplasm, our glands, our hormones, they are also elevated, they are also sanctified, and there is a growth of our personality, and finally we attain the goal of our life, which is merger with the Supreme, which is the realization of the self, or which is the God experience in common terminology, I can say. So let us aspire for God realization, for God experience, for self-realization. Let this human life not be wasted in crude thinking, in material thinking, in thinking which can degrade us from human life to other forms of life. And then it may take, we do not know how many years, millions of years it may to again come back to human life. So let us move towards higher status of our evolution and finally achieve our supreme status when the mind becomes infinite and we become self-contained, we become desireless, there is no restlessness in our mind. It is always happy, always inspired, always full of spirit and enthusiasm, and it never feels any sign of depression or any negative vibrations. It becomes free from that, and that is possible by becoming a spiritual sadhaka, a spiritual aspirant. One must become a spiritual aspirant while doing every activity of the world. One must not forget the supreme goal of life and lead a life which is full of joy and happiness. Namaskar to you all.
Namaskar. Thank you very much for joining this session. So as we are seeing the email ID, if you have any questions, please write to this email ID. And also I request you to fill up the Google form, which I have sent it in the chat box, so that we will keep you updated on our subsequent sessions. Please keep in touch. We will meet you in the next session. Thank you all.